Have you ever been talking to a friend and you start chatting about your origin story? Here's a little ditty about Luke and Heather, two weird kids growing up in a haunted town. Brought together on the stage and crossing paths in the school halls, they didn't know yet how important they'd be in each other's lives. Once they donned that cap and gown, like roads in a yellow wood, they diverged. They lived a lot of life between the two of them, and though their journeys took them in different directions and put them through different trials, they came to many of the same conclusions. As fate always does with people who are meant to be in each other's lives, it brought them together again, over 30 years later, with the same goal in mind. So let's talk about it.
So let's talk about it.
All right.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Heather.
I'm Luke.
Now that we got that out of the way.
And this is GENeXorcists, where we're going to dig deep into life as a Gen Xer.
Yes. And welcome. Yes. And thank you for finding us in podcast land.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about how we got here and why the two of us, after only, talking for a grand total of 37 minutes or something like that, decided to jump into this adventure together after not talking to each other for 30 years.
For 30 years. Well, I mean, it was really that 30-year break that sealed the deal from like knowing you. And then like, I was like, oh God, I need a break from that. And then we took it and here we are. You know, I think that's what made it work.
Right. Anybody who's traveled with you can make a comment now if they'd like.
All three of you.
I know, right? So some of my earliest memories of you were obviously Nesbitt's World.
Yes.
Our dear, dear high school drama teacher, Jean Nesbitt, drama class. That was and drama club. I knew you from there, but the first time I remember hanging out with you like socially was at it was probably my sophomore homecoming after party that they would hold in the cafeteria there. Yeah.
I would have been a freshman.
Yeah, because Brian, he was hanging out with you that night, and that's the first time I remember hanging out with you, socially.
And I remember it as clear as day, like every moment of it. Okay, so a little bit about me. And to anyone listening that helped raise me, I apologize profusely, but I did a lot of drugs when I was younger. And my memories here and there, and also trauma. I have trauma brain, so. But I'm sure we had a lovely time. I mean, I love the heck out of both of you. So.
Oh, when I think about it, like I remember that it happened. If you ask me for details, we'd have to pull out your scrapbooks because and we'll talk about that as we go, how our memories are just kind of what they are now. But I think what's fun or interesting about kind of our story, we talk about how like the universe puts people together who are supposed to be together. I moved to the town where we met when I was like 5. Before that, I lived in Dale City, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
On a street called Darbydale Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And where did you live when you were 4?
I do not remember the exact name. I'm pretty sure it was Darbydale.
Yeah, probably.
Because the way that the streets went in that particular area was alphabetical. So no matter what D street I lived on, we were neighbors.
Yeah.
It would be
And
funny,
then,
like if we tracked back, like to preschools and stuff, if we went to the same one.
oh, that would be funny.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody alive would remember those, though. I know I won't remember.
My mom took a lot of pictures,
Oh,
so I might have pictures.
we'll have to check. And I think what we're here for is we're just like, I guess for me, if I knew 20 years ago that everybody else was going through the same shit that I was going through, it'd be a different story probably. I think we both had to go through all of the weird and traumatic shit that we've gone through to get here, to get us in the right place mentally and emotionally,
Right.
to be able to do this.
Yes. Well, and I mean, it's those years and those experiences, and not to overuse the word, but all those traumas
Mm-hmm.
that afford us the, I don't want to say afford us the ability, but I'm going to, because that, I mean, that's it. I mean, we're both storytellers. And for me, my favorite kind of storytelling is nonfiction, because for me, my life is stranger than fiction. So all of that had to happen.
Right.
All of the pieces that we'll talk about and deep dive in this will just show why and how we got here.
Yeah. I remember a little bit about Dale City, the house we lived in. It was a duplex, I believe. And like, so we talk about traumas, and I'm starting to discover things that are traumatic that I didn't realize were traumas. We moved away from there, fortunately enough.
Yes.
Moved into the trailer park.
Yeah.
And I can say that's where I remember the first weird thing happening to me. We're going to get around fourth or fifth grade here.
Okay.
And it was one of those like night terror moments. I woke up and someone or something was sitting at the end of my bed, and I was terrified and couldn't even scream. That's how it's probably the most scared I remember being in my life.
Yeah.
So that's just the beginning. That's like just getting to the trailer park and moving in, and then like one of the first years, within the first year of being in the trailer park, that tell me how you got to, tell me a little bit about your beginnings, because I love these stories.
My beginning. Well, my journey to Earthside was traumatic. I died, as the story goes. I flatlined in utero, and this was in the 70s. So my mother was smoking in the hospital room
Mm-hmm.
while attached to the machines. She had been admitted because of the preeclampsia. She had preeclampsia.
Mm-hmm.
And the story she would tell is that she took a long drag, and then I flatlined, and they were like running down the hall to do a cesarean. So, I mean, I was flat for a while. I came out flat, and then they revived me, I guess. I don't really know the terminology. Most of what I remember is oh my God, my mom could smoke in the hospital room, and you smoked all in you. And I remember the story of like the trauma she would describe as, everyone's racing down the hallway, because my mother's blood pressure was so bad. They had like created this special little section for her because they knew it was going to go one way or the other. And they were pretty much ready for it to go the other. So when I did make my appearance, I had the cord around my neck 5 times, and I had strangled myself. Or my mom tried to kill me. I don't know, whatever. Detail.
I'm pretty sure that they did revive you, because otherwise I'd have to say you look
well,
good for a dead kid.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm no
Hey, surprise!
I'm no doctor.
You're no doctor, but you're way more spooky than you thought. Nobody else can see. It's just Luke talking to himself.
Who's he talking to?
It was like, why does he seem to be laughing and talking to somebody and putting it out on the internet? This is weird. That would have been like the best, like go what is it when you go for long haul, long journey joke?
Long game.
Yeah, long game.
You're good with the phrase, Heather.
I'm really good with phrases. Just wait. So yeah, so that was my death birth. And I was teensy tiny. I fit in my dad's hand, and I no longer am teensy tiny and can't fit in my dad's hand, mostly because my dad's hand is in an urn, but we'll get to that later. So I was born in Alexandria, Virginia, and we lived in townhouses. And we lived in our particular townhouse, I think was the end townhouse, because we had like a little driveway area. I remember our backyard, and then there was this fence that separated our front yard to the neighbor's front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I want to remember all of the details. And it's, we're 20 minutes in and here I go. But we moved very quickly because of that fence and the person that lived on the other side of it.
Okay.
So I was 4. I would have been 3 or 4 because I went to preschool in Dale City and I went to kindergarten in Dale City. So we didn't move to Fredericksburg until I was going into first grade. So we moved from the townhouse to the house in Dale City. And I was a kid. I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know. I just thought it was cool that I had 2 rooms. I had a playroom downstairs and I had my bedroom upstairs. We had like this really big house. We would have all the family over for all the holidays. But the hill, you were talking about the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Our backyard was a hill. I'm really, really surprised that my father, 1, survived mowing that, and 2, all of his body parts stayed intact. Because when we go and talk more about our parents, my dad, I have a lot of, oh, Tom did it again stories. And it's always the again part.
Right. It's never the first time he's jacked himself up completely.
Why move the birdhouse when you can just continuously knock your head on it while you take blood thinners and then bleed everywhere? But anyway.
Massive headroom Harry.
Yeah. So there was a time period though when we lived in Alexandria. My parents had like a group of friends, and 2 in particular. I grew up with aunts and uncles that I never knew weren't my aunts and uncles until like I got older, and my mom was like, "Oh no, they're."
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was one of, I think, 13. 9 survived through childhood, and my mom was one of 7. So, yeah, of course I have. These are all my aunts and uncles because I already have a ton of them. But I distinctly have this memory, like my first spooky thing that I can remember, if we're going to call it spooky. My mom told me it was a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my mom also knew things about me, and
Mm-hmm.
whether she talked to people about it or not, there was enough that happened later in life towards the end of her life. Because spoiler alert, both of my parents are gone, and they died 4 days apart, and I'm an orphan. Anyway, so the dream, there was a UFO. And I very much can remember seeing this, and we came out and we were looking, and like everyone's in their pajamas, and it's literally the pajamas that I was wearing that night. And then I was gifted this doll nightlight.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, thank you. And then when I woke up, my mom was like, no, that didn't happen. And I was like, but where did that come from? Because, I had the doll nightlight. And then she was like, and listed off some family friend. So that was fun. But so then we moved, to Fredericksburg.
You had an alien nightlight, is what you're telling me.
Oh, yeah. Did I just kind of gloss over that?
Well,
Yeah. I mean, and it
so
was a doll too, so.
I've heard a lot of your stories, but I haven't heard all of your stories. And this is a new one, so
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fun.
Some of them I save. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
we'll call it the alien. You know, I, from a very young age, always said that I knew that God and aliens were real because humans could not be the smartest thing in the universe. Um, and as I got older and got more language, I understood that to be that, like, the whole we're not alone thing isn't just like the little green men. It's,
Yeah.
there's universes upon universes and people and all that jazz. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So when we moved into Fredericksburg,
Mm-hmm.
my parents, we had it was a lovely house. We moved there because my dad had to retire with disability from the railroad. Flash forward for just a second to seventh grade, he began losing body parts. It's not funny, but the first one he lost was his leg. He lost his left leg, so that's why he had to take the disability, because we knew the disease that he had was going to progress.
Yeah.
So my parents bought this lovely house in the middle of the Civil War battleground. Like, I grew up playing in Civil War, actual Civil War ditches, like,
Yeah.
where people would lay behind, and
Like,
that, like, the one part of the park that was really close to my house, if you walked up, that's where they would stand and watch for the other soldiers. Like, I mean, it was
yeah.
Virginia, so they were Confederate, so they would watch for the Union soldiers to come to try and take them out. So very hallowed ground. And I do know, and my uncle confirmed this, like, my uncle confirmed this with you in
Yeah.
front of you,
Well, we were
that
there.
my mom had said, don't you dare tell her, scare her, don't you dare any of that. And I don't know if that's just because of anxiety. I mean, I was an anxious kid, but, now that I know, I was an anxious kid just because I was in, there were so many layers I was seeing. I wasn't just seeing what was in front of me. I was seeing
Yeah.
what happened there. I was
Yeah.
constantly in the thick of it. So, and yeah, so Jesus came to me.
Like, your
Here's,
transitions
I
are
just,
flawless.
hi, dear listener. Yes, my transitions aren't flawless because it's just my life, and the memes and the videos and the stuff of when people are telling stories and they stop and look around at the crowd and they realize everyone's kind of like uh, looking at them kind of with their mouths open with the total WTF face. I mean, that's just my life. So I just roll with it and back. So Jesus, when I was like 7, I have a very distinct memory of, like, getting ready for bed, saying my prayers, being in bed, not asleep, and Jesus coming and saying, "Look, it's not going to be easy. I understand that this thing that I'm tasking you with and the things that you will be asked to do
Uh,
are going to be hard, but you're here teaching teachers, and you're here to teach people who I really am." And for a long time, that was cool. Well, I mean, I was a kid. I'd say for a couple of months, like, I could handle it. And then I was like, this is a lot, and I think I'm done. And so I had to take a break. But then when I kind of turned back on, I turned that part on too. And basically, what developed is an understanding that we humans are what created religion. And these, what is the word that I want? Not ancestors, but I mean, these, like, Jesus came.
mm-hmm.
I believe that he totally existed, and I don't believe he said a word that people say that he did, because he, in many ways, told me that. So that was my first several. I mean, it started when I died and came back.
It started when I died and then moved on to when I met Jesus. So as we move along in this.
Wait, why did you need a 30-year break from me? I'm still confused about that.
It's a mystery.
We'll never know.
We will never know. So while you were playing in Civil War battlefields, I was playing in Civil War era graveyards with with my friends. Yeah, we had that growing up. Gen X, ride your bikes everywhere, be home when the street lights come on, kind of. Yeah, we were the generation that had the commercials to remind our parents to look for us at 10.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd go out on my bike with my friends and all of that, and we explored the woods around my house and the trails, and we played in the river. And I mean, I lived less than a quarter of a mile from the Rappahannock River, and we'd go swim and play in that. And we drove through it because now there's a neighborhood, but it used to be a big open field with there was a grove of trees in the center of this field. And in our exploring, we found 4 headstones in there. And when we found them, they had been vandalized, but I didn't know thing one about any of how the world and universe worked. I'll just put it that way. I didn't know thing one about it. So to me and my friends, it was just a cool place to go hang out and, eat our baby roots and drink our Dr. Peppers and like
baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth. So my imagination, imagine a guy who writes a lot, his imagination ran crazy. And we had this, basically, we'd go play war. We'd play guns. It was cool to play guns back then. We'd be out in the woods running around, pretend shooting each other, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I had this one friend in particular he and I would hang out and we'd go, and the game that we played was when we found these headstones, we kind of, much like ancestors, we didn't understand it, so we had to come up with a story to explain it, and we did in our own head. And thus the character or entity of the farmer was born. And when I would think back on it for a long time, it was just me and this friend running around pretending like there was this evil, long dead farmer chasing us around, and because we were playing on his property and all of that kind of stuff. And then I told you, I woke up one night and there was an entity or something sitting at the end of my bed that scared the ever living crap out of me. But I was also in this time frame started getting big into church, and like the church in our neighborhood was a conservative Southern Baptist church. One of the like, if it's not our way, it is of the devil. Mm-hmm. Like those were your options. Follow yes. what we say specifically, or it is of the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of choices. I choose Satan. Like
right. So like even growing up and into my 20s and stuff, when I would think back on it, that was just a game that me and my friend would play. It was just a game. It was this thing that we made up, and I attributed a lot of it to my imagination. And yes. I see the look that you're.
Yeah, because I don't believe that you made it up.
Yeah, I know. Now that we have talked, I don't think so either. And high school was weird. I was the weird kid. I was kind of. This is where our paths first started to cross, and we were so grateful for Nesbitt's World because that was the one place in the school we could be us.
Yes.
And I had my little clique of friends. My one friend even called us the Island of Misfit Toys because we were all just the weird kids that didn't fit into any of the cliques. But like we were talking about this, like the drama kids knew me, the band kids knew me because of my brother.
Right.
Some of the athletes knew me because some of them were also drama kids.
Right.
But like, I didn't. My clique was my handful of freaks, as a lot of people called us, that didn't fit into any clique. We
Right.
were our own like sub clique kind of thing. Yeah, and that's how high school kind of was the whole time for me.
Yeah.
And when we get into some like of the weird stuff that happened, one of the episodes that we're working on is all about paranormal stuff and like the different layers and of what we can see and all of that. I'll get into one of the guys that went to our high school. If I can, I don't even know if I can remember his name. I'll describe him, but I believe he was actually the first person I met that understood the paranormal, that I realized understood paranormal. Like, you had a thing, but I didn't know you well enough to be like, oh, do you talk to dead people?
Oh, right.
And it wasn't, yeah, and it wasn't even that kind of thing. He just had this weird, like, I don't know. It was like this, like, unnaturally wise outlook on life
Yeah. I'm trying
for
to
a
figure out, like,
for a
if I can
17-year-old. I don't know.
figure
He
out
was this.
who it is.
He was older, and he like he wore. I think he wore a dark trench coat when we went to high school. That wasn't as like didn't have the connotation it has now.
No.
Um,
It was
yeah,
we all wanted one. Yeah,
yeah,
but now it unfortunately it
yeah.
is
But he
synonymous.
wore that all the time and was kind of like a loner, dark, shorter hair. Yeah, he was one of the weird kids. Like, but I can't remember his name. If I saw him in one of our yearbooks, I'd let you know. But anyway, he just would. I was in awe of this dude, and when I start thinking back now,
Yeah.
I honestly believe he was one of my first guides.
Nice.
And I didn't, but like I didn't realize at the time. It was one of those. He was guiding me. He was helping me with
Right.
stuff I didn't understand without even me realizing he was helping me with stuff I didn't understand.
Right. Really exist. We're not going to find him in the notebook or the yearbook.
Great.
He's just that's why he wore the trench coat. So you would see him.
It's City of Angels.
Seriously, like I'm trying to think like I only remember one kid that wore a trench coat and I'm looking
Me.
at him.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and it was me.
No,
Yeah,
I don't.
maybe he was my imagination. I don't know. Like, we'll start talking. You and I will start talking about growing up Gen X and
Yes.
how it's like our friends whose houses we would go over to and stuff like that. What the family life was like, and like even starting in high school, we had like different family dynamics and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that even kind of started later, but I mean earlier, but some was like
Oh yeah.
same. So like for me, middle school was I mean, like for everybody, it was pretty formative. Of the people that I was friends with in middle school that had
Hmm.
uteruses, I'm the only one that didn't use mine to make life
Yeah.
before graduating, which was, you know, probably a good thing. In seventh grade, I fell into the church. I have a family member who is very much into church, very has always been for one reason or another. And
Hmm.
I would spend like the weekends with them. And one weekend, I was like, I think I'm ready. And so she did the prayer, and I was saved. And then I got baptized, and it was the Southern Baptist Church. And I mean, my
Yeah.
mom was fine with that. She did not. I was not raised in church, and I got
Right.
to ask to go to church, and I got to pick the churches to go to. So when I was a kid, we went to like all the churches. I
Yeah.
think the only one we didn't really do was like a Catholic mass because I wasn't sure, and my mom wasn't quite sure how to like how do you
How to
just
go
go to
about,
a Catholic mass because
like how
there's
to do
really
it. Yeah.
yeah there's
Yeah.
things they do. And if you have been to a Catholic mass, which I have now been to several, they also hurt, and I'm too old.
They are one of the more physical of the
And the
churches.
standing and the kneeling and the
Yeah.
so but and then when I got into high school, I too like when I look back at high school, I feel like I didn't fit in anywhere. I kind of fit in everywhere. And
Yeah.
I had some close friends that I'm still friends with, but I never felt like clicky,
Yeah.
except, drama. I was close with some of the drama kids because some of
See,
them, I mean, I grew up with, like I'd known
yeah.
since we moved into that neighborhood.
And
And
I
then
think
some of
that's interesting that you said you didn't feel clicky except for drama. I felt clicky everywhere. Like I wasn't, but there were cliques everywhere,
oh,
except for in drama.
oh, okay. See, I guess I saw, it as its own clique. If we're going to use that term.
Oh, I guess my self-esteem was so low that I considered it a non-clique because none of the cool kids would let me be in their clique.
I mean, yeah, you're
Come on. Oh, well, yeah, I remember.
no. It was always hard because there were always those kids that stood out that, wrote the plays and did,
Yeah,
and were kind of more outgoing. And because of that, the other people in different cliques gravitated towards them. And
yeah,
so some of those people probably wouldn't even call themselves a drama kid. I mean, they would, but they wouldn't.
right.
Well, I can't speak for them, but in witnessing, they were also the popular kids. But, you know, when you talk about how our lives were a little bit different in the way that I guess we were raised. I'm not quite
Mm,
sure. I'm not quoting you correctly, but I had the stay-at-home parents. My father was retired.
right.
My mom babysat, so I was not a latchkey kid. I mean, yeah, I drank garden hose water during the summer, and my bikes were piled up, and we left in the sunrise, and we came home. We didn't have street lights, so we came home like for dinner. Like I
Yeah,
did all of the Gen X things like that, but I was not a latchkey kid. And when we got into high school and we could drive, I was all excited because all of my friends were latchkey kids.
yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my God, like your parents aren't home. Let's go to your house." And they're like, "Well, your parents are home. Let's go to your house." And I'm like, and they'd come in and they'd be like, "Hey, mom, hey, dad," and my mom would just hug them and hold them and feed them, and I mean, they just walk in and open the refrigerator and just
Right.
food, and I was always like, "Ugh, God,
It's hilarious. Yeah, you don't want to hang out at your house when
right?"
you're a
Because
kid.
I wanted to go do the like the bad stuff, and my friends were just like, "I want to be fed and loved," and it's like,
And like we've tried to I've talked to you about this, like both of us do this. Our house is that house now.
yes,
Like,
that's what I
yeah,
strive for. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
like last night was an example. Natalie just calls from like downstairs, "Hey, Amaya's gonna stop by," and her friend.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes later, the door opens and she walks in and she comes and gives us all hugs,
Yeah,
and then goes upstairs. And
sure.
then another 10 minutes later, all of a sudden I hear a guy's voice in my house. I'm the only guy that lives in my house now.
Yeah,
But it was another one of her friends just coming in, and they comes in and waves, and he's like, "Hey," and
yeah.
we talk for a few minutes. Then he goes upstairs, and it's like, yeah, it's so funny that the kids didn't who had that,
Yeah,
didn't know how cool that was.
right,
Now we are those parents. Like I'm trying to be.
right.
When I say how cool that was, maybe it wasn't cool to hang out with your parents, but knowing what we know of the world,
Right.
it's really cool that they wanted to be at your house and you like.
Yes. Yes. I mean
We didn't appreciate or know in the time how safe that meant they felt.
right. And it didn't dawn on me. Like I didn't actually
Right.
come to that realization probably until my 30s,
Yeah.
until I was a parent myself. And I was
Yeah.
like, Oh, I get it. Because, one of the things that I talked about, with Lori before kids was like, I want to be the house that kids come to. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I was. That's what I want to be. And I was just, oh.
And
So,
my friends came over and played a lot, but I think we were in that era where it was just if it's nice outside, you're gonna go outside.
yes. Oh,
It's you know,
yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot of the times it came across as it's summertime, you're making too much racket, get out of the house.
Yes.
You
That was,
know, so yeah, it was always like you're making too much noise, get out. We're trying to do this, get out. So I know for us, it's can my friends come over? Yeah. Okay, we want to make brownies. I know you guys are watching TV. I don't care, make brownies. Like, go for it. The kitchen, the TV right there, you could work do it, make the brownies
yeah.
kind of thing because I know they don't appreciate it right now, but when my youngest
They
looks
were.
back and goes, we could have been anywhere and my friends chose to be at my parents' house. Like that's kind of a cool thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
at the
And
very least, it makes us feel like we did something right. So, might not be
right.
cool, but I feel like I did something right.
Right. Well, I mean, right. And when high school rolled around, we all got jobs. So summers shifted for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Where we weren't just like hanging out. This was always usually between because for whatever reason, the districts, the way that they were drawn, we were so far away from the high school. And
Oh yeah.
so there was
Yeah.
like, what do you do between school and your play rehearsal? You'd go either get in trouble or go to Heather's house, and then always Denny's afterwards.
Right.
In high school, I was in touch with my spirituality. All of the things that the
Mhm.
church taught me that was bad, I was like, oh, I like this. And so, I mean, that's like how I learned about the tarot and about crystals and all these things.
Right.
And so in high school, people would come to me and ask for like rune readings, and they'd ask for me to cleanse them, and they'd ask for me to do, card readings. And I
Were
would have
you
the phone cord like stretched as far as I could
Yeah.
in my bedroom. And my mom would open the door and be like, "What is that?" I'm like, it's just herbs." And I mean, because it was just herbs. What are you
Were
doing?
you
Oh.
were you calling yourself a witch then?
I was not, and I
Okay.
honestly did not call myself a witch for a very long time because I did not want to infringe on the people who had put in the work. And what I
Yeah.
obviously know now is I did put in the work. Um,
Right.
and but I just never wanted to take away from somebody else's
Yeah,
or,
the
you know,
reason I ask is because like I said, we don't have, I don't have a whole lot of like solid memories that I know, oh, that actually happened. However, I do remember the word witch being used to describe you in school.
yeah.
She's
Who?
a witch.
Who?
She's like a witch. She does like all those card readings and stuff. Like, our
Give me their
Fredericksburg,
name.
Fredericksburg, Virginia. We didn't have a big, witch population,
I know.
or at least not that I knew of in the 80s or
No,
90s.
we
So,
we didn't really.
yeah. So, but
We were
I remember that. So I knew that you were into that stuff.
so I was weird because I was so smart,
Yeah.
and someone else called
That's
me a witch. That's great.
someone called you a witch and you were super smart. So obviously you were terrifying. Um,
I mean,
but then look, we are getting short on time and we haven't even left high school yet.
well, I mean, the next couple of years for me, I mean, well, past high school, I went to college for like 3 days.
Uh-huh.
saw gun violence with
Right.
my eyes, and got a wonderful case of PTSD that
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
it's now chronic,
It is.
now officially as the C.
It's been upgraded.
It's been yes, I have the new shiny version. Like after that, I just wanted to be off. I did not want to be spiritual. I did not want to be.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see dead people. I didn't want to do any of that anymore. And I just said, please, just make it stop. And I pretty much, I mean, I was really close to being actually agoraphobic. Like I would not leave my
Right.
house.
Right.
And then I something just happened and I just was like, okay, I really have to get this under control. And it kind of just switched to driving where I just didn't drive for a while, but I would at least leave the house. And then I was like, I'm tired of this. I'd like to be turned on again. So my resume is winding. It's a full
Yeah.
episode in itself. But
Right.
part of it was, I joined an MLM before we knew what MLMs were. And I would always refer to it as the Christian Candle Mafia. And what we know about MLMs now is they are very cult like in the way that they're run. And so flash forward, dead sister, dead parents, adopted our beautiful children, created a family, joined a cult again. A different one
As
that
one
wasn't an
does.
MLM, that was an actual cult. And so that was fun. And then I'm just kind of like fast forwarding through the last 15 years. Um
Yeah.
but 2020 came, 2020 shifted all of us on a genetic, molecular,
Hmm.
spiritual, and mental health, physical, every level. For
Yeah.
us in particular, though, our 19-year-old son, had a massive heart attack on February 26, 2020. And that was after having a cold for about a week. And the coroner didn't even think to test for COVID, which we now know if you have any type of heart issue, especially in the beginning of
Yeah.
COVID, you needed to be put in a bubble. And we found that out while we were waiting on the results from the coroner. So I'm hard pressed to not believe that he had COVID.
Yeah.
I
Right.
really,
Right.
I really believe it. Lori is like, we'll never know. And I'm like, I know we'll never know, but I know. So then that made me really just turn my back on everything again for a little while. And here I am now. I'm back. I'm back fully feeling spiritual. You can see like my background. I think people might be like, oh, what is this? No, this, no, this. For those of you listening, I'm trying to point in the right place. And while I pretend to be a Gen Xer, I am very much a boomer when it comes to technology.
You're a
That
boomer in a
is,
Gen Xer's body.
while it is obviously a crucifix, it is a last rites kit. So that is not necessarily a sign of my religion. It is a curio. It's an antique, and it was used for giving last rites.
We'll be exploring curios and curiosities and oddities and all of that in a later episode. So I'm going to thumbnail my post graduation as well. After graduating, which was a year before you, I had a handful of really weird part-time jobs and then decided to join the army. And with less than a year after I graduated, I went off to basic training. Um, I served in overseas combat tour, retired from the army, decided to, in that time, get married have a couple of kids, get divorced, get married again. Now we're the Brady Bunch, and there's double what I had before. I went back to school, got my bachelor's of arts in integrated arts, and then I graduated with my MFA in creative writing and publishing arts.
Yay.
And in that time, a lot of stuff has happened. I know you talked about how like COVID came, the pandemic hit, and that kind of changed all of us almost on a molecular level. It feels like.
We are not the same. I don't
No,
think
we are
we're
not.
species.
I do love the fact that one of the things that we are more open about now is the mental health side of things. I will stand on a mountaintop and shout the praises of therapy till the day I die. Uh,
Me too.
and then we'll also
Shout out to my team that might be listening.
like for real. And I think for me, yes, it changed everything. But I think what the pandemic did was it highlighted and made me personally take a look at all of the mental health issues that I had. Because basically it was just me and my issues sitting around the house. Right? And then
I'm
when
sorry.
in my
I mean,
family,
yeah.
but like when
I mean, yeah.
you're isolated with a handful of other like 5 other people max at any given time, you're going to end up doing some introspective shit, and that's that's what happened. I had
Yeah.
been diagnosed with moderate to severe PTSD a couple years after I got back from Iraq. Went through the therapy, and yay therapy. I wouldn't be able to talk about it so nonchalantly, and I don't want people to think that it's not a big deal. It was. It
Yeah.
is. It was handled though, so that's why we're able to talk about it and do it. While I was in Iraq, I had a couple of moments of, I don't know, again, what I would say at the time was just weird shit happening to me. And then it was during the pandemic, a friend of ours who is a medium, LJ, had set up a reading for us, and she said some stuff that nobody could have known. Like, I don't care where you research, you couldn't have known that. So I believe. And then she told me that I might possibly have certain gifts as well. So I've been doing a lot of looking back on my life and trying to make sense of some of the weird stuff that I couldn't before, running into old friends that I haven't talked to in 30 years. And they also happen to be like living a life in the same vein that I'm living, just trying to be better than I was the day before. And here we are.
Yeah. Here we
But
are.
we just started like, we're going to talk about all of this shit. We're going to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about being parented. We're going to talk about growing up earlier than we had to, being
Yes.
30 at 13 and still being 13 at 30. Like
Yes. Yes.
those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Why Gen X is still big kids, why we just want to be left alone. And I think one of my favorites that I'm looking forward to is like, we're raising the next Gen X, Gen Alpha. They are a different kind of feral than we are, and I can't wait to dig into that.
They're the kind of feral that's a little more organized and is going to change the world, I think. I think
It's so damn exciting, like to
we
think
were
about what they're
supposed
going to
to,
do.
but we got caught up with our MTV.
Yeah,
All the newfangled toys and technology came out, and I think that distracted us. And then the universe was like, damn it. And then,
I need to start over.
yeah, whoops. And to anyone listening, thank you. Thank you for finding us. And we hope that, you find some sort of, I don't know, comfort, resemblance, guidance, anything in the words and the stories that we're going to share. I promise I'll get better at my transitions. But yeah, so guys, we look so forward to getting to know you. So if you have any questions or comments, please make sure you reach out. If there's a topic you'd like for us to cover, if we glazed over something that caught your attention in what we just talked about and you want us to talk more in depth about it, please let us know, because that is what we're here for, to dig deep, to exercise out all of those things that make us sparkly or spicy, and definitely Gen X. So until next time, when we have a catchier phrase.
Bye.
Bye.